You'd like to think that cannibalism is one of those things buried in ancient history, a grim part of humanity's past that no longer holds any relevance. But disturbingly, believe it or not, there are still tribes and clans out there who feast on human flesh. So join us for today's as we're going to look at 15 most terrifying Amazon cannibal tribes you'd never want to encounter. Number 15, the Azmat Warriors of the Mangroves. The Azmat people of Papua New Guinea have long been shaped by the harsh terrain of vast mangrove swamps. Their environment defines their way of life, and their traditions reflect a deep inherited connection to it. Historically, the Azmat were known as fierce warriors, fiercely defending their territory. In earlier times, they practiced ritual cannibalism, believing that consuming the flesh of enemies transferred strength and spiritual power. Although this practice has faded, the heart of their customs remains strong. Fishing, sago cultivation, and ceremonial dances are still central to daily life. Their wood carvings tell stories of ancestors, spirits, and past battles. But their way of life now faces modern threats. Logging, development, and policy restrictions threaten their ancestral land and resources. With a population of nearly 70,000, the Azmat are fighting to retain their identity. Their resilience, grounded in tradition and self-reliance, speaks to the cultural strength required to survive amid ongoing environmental and political pressures. Number 14, the Suri Tribe. The Suri people, also called the Surma, live in the remote southwestern regions of Ethiopia near the South Sudan border. As part of the Surmic ethnic cluster, they share close cultural and linguistic ties with nearby tribes. Though secluded, the Suri have preserved many ancestral traditions, largely untouched by external influences. Their lifestyle revolves around cattle herding, where livestock serves not just as an economic foundation, but as a spiritual and social pillar. Cattle are a sign of wealth, prestige, and family honor. Farming practices such as sorghum and maize cultivation support their diet, passed down through generations. The Suri are also known for their distinct body modifications. Lip plates worn by women begin in adolescence and gradually increase in size, symbolizing beauty and status. Scarification, jewelry, and ceremonial attire reflect identity and personal achievement. Despite threats from deforestation, land conflicts, and modern expansion, the Suri remain resilient and remarkable. Number 13, the Melanesians. The people of the isolated Pacific Islands have shaped a culture that fused spiritual beliefs with practical survival. Among their many customs, the cargo cults remain one of the most intriguing. These movements began during the colonial era, when Melanesians first encountered Europeans, traders, missionaries, and soldiers. To these communities, the arrival of goods like canned food, clothing, and machinery seemed divine. These unfamiliar items were seen not as trade goods, but as sacred offerings from gods. In response, tribes formed belief systems around the idea that certain behaviors could summon more of these gifts. They built imitation airstrips and wooden airplanes to invite cargo planes from the sky. Others mimicked military routines, hoping to please the spirits. What outsiders often dismiss as bizarre reflects a deeply symbolic system of thought. The cargo cults reveal how they interpreted unfamiliar encounters through their own lens, showcasing the lasting impact of foreign presence on indigenous beliefs and worldviews. Number 12, the Maasai. Across the open landscapes of Kenya and Tanzania, the Maasai remain one of Africa's most recognizable cultural groups. With their vibrant cloaks, elaborate beadwork, and community-centered lifestyle, they embody cultural resilience in a changing world. At the core of Maasai life is cattle herding, which provides not only food but also spiritual and social meaning. Cattle represent wealth, lineage, and identity. Their diet, mainly meat, milk, and sometimes blood, is directly tied to this connection. Their colorful garments and beaded jewelry carry encoded messages about age, status, and personal achievements. Rituals like circumcision mark the transition from boyhood to manhood and hold deep communal value, even if controversial elsewhere. Though modern influences such as education and medical care have been embraced, the Maasai continue to defend their customs. Threats like climate change, land grabs, and shifting politics challenge their way of life. Still, the Maasai endure, preserving tradition while adapting, remaining rooted in a cultural identity that has lasted generations. Number 11. The Cororowai Treehouse Dwellers. The Cororowai of Papua New Guinea are famed for their elevated homes. Tree houses reaching as high as 40 meters, built to escape floods, predators, and rival clans. These towering shelters are engineering marvels created from jungle timber and vines, rooted in practicality and survival. Their spiritual worldview centers on entities called kahua, believed to possess individuals and cause harm. Ritual cannibalism, practiced in the past, was carried out to expel these spirits and protect the village. Although rare and often exaggerated by outsiders, these rituals held deep ceremonial meaning. The Cororowai continue to live mostly independently of modern systems. While minor contact has introduced trade goods and occasional visitors, the tribe still follows traditional foraging, hunting, and belief practices. Their culture, shaped by vertical living and spiritual protection, stands as one of the most unique societal adaptations in the world. Even today, their way of life remains defined by survival, ritual, and an unwavering connection to the forest. Number 10. The Awa Tribe. In the dense Amazonian forests of Brazil, the Awa Tribe exists as one of the most endangered uncontacted groups on the planet. With fewer than 100 individuals, they live as nomads, moving constantly, avoiding contact, and surviving entirely off the forest. Their connection to nature is unmatched. They hunt with handmade bows, gather fruits, and use medicinal plants passed down through generations. Their worldview sees the forest not just as a resource, but as family. Despite this, their future is under constant threat. Illegal logging, mining, and government indifference have brought destruction to their ancestral lands. Encroaching settlers and industries have carved roads through sacred ground. Even conservation programs have failed to halt the damage. Activists and indigenous rights groups continue to push for their protection, but enforcement remains weak. The Awa's continued existence is a defiant act. They live quietly but powerfully, representing one of the last human links to a world unshaped by cities, money, or noise. Number 9. The Assaro Mudman. In the forested river valleys of Papua New Guinea, the Assaro Mudman are known for their haunting appearance and remarkable history. Their signature clay masks, eerie and expressionless, trace back to a moment of desperation. During conflict with a neighboring tribe, the Assaro fled to the river, covering their bodies in gray mud to hide. Emerging at dusk, they appeared like ghostly apparitions. Terrified, their enemies fled. This act of survival became legend, and the masks became sacred symbols. Made from natural clay, stone, and pigment, each mask represents spirits or tales unique to the tribe's mythology. These aren't costumes. They're cultural memory sculpted into form. Today, their dances mimic the movements of that night. Slow, controlled, unnerving. These performances are more than tradition. They're declarations of survival. In a world shifting fast, the Assaro hold to their past with pride. Their art and rituals remain a visual and spiritual defense of identity, rooted in story and fear. Number 8. The Yanomami Tribe. In Amazon, the Yanomami are one of South America's most significant indigenous groups, with an estimated population of 35,000 to 45,000 across northern Brazil and southern Venezuela. Their communities are built around large communal dwellings called chabonos, where they live collectively, sharing food, space, and responsibility. Farming, hunting, and foraging form the core of their lifestyle. Gardens of bananas and cassava feed their people, while wild plants, fruits, and animals sustain daily needs. But their territory is under growing threat. Illegal gold mining has polluted rivers with mercury, poisoning fish and water. Logging and farming encroach on ancestral lands. Diseases like malaria and measles, introduced by outsiders, have devastated villages. Despite this, the Yanomami continue defending their land and culture, raising international awareness. Their resistance speaks volumes. They remain a vital voice in the global fight for indigenous rights, standing firm in a world that keeps pressing in, unwanted and uninvited. Number 7. The Aztecs. Though not an Amazonian tribe, the Aztecs were one of the most powerful civilizations to exist in the Americas. Flourishing in central Mexico between the 14th and 16th centuries, their empire was built on engineering, warfare, and deeply spiritual beliefs. At the heart of their society was the idea that human sacrifice maintained cosmic balance. Captured warriors were taken to the tops of temples and offered to gods such as Huitzilopochtli, ensuring the sun would rise and crops would grow. While this may seem brutal today, it was sacred to their worldview. The Aztecs also advanced systems of agriculture, astronomy, medicine, and architecture. Their capital city, Tenochtitlan, was a marvel, constructed with canals, pyramids, and marketplaces that rivaled any European city of its time. Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés eventually destroyed the empire, but the Aztec legacy never fully disappeared. Their influence remains embedded in Mexican language, art, and ritual, living proof of a civilization that refused to be forgotten. Number 6. Batak Tribe. In the forests of Palawan, the Batak Tribe fights to hold on to their vanishing way of life. With a population of roughly 2,000, they face cultural extinction under the pressure of modern systems. For centuries, they practiced shifting cultivation, a method where small patches of land are farmed, then left to regenerate. It kept them in balance with the forest. Today, conservation laws label this method destructive, banning it inside protected zones. As a result, the Batak are cut off from the very practices that kept their culture alive. These policies have forced them into survival mode, losing access to hunting grounds, spiritual sites, and medicinal plants. The forest was not just their home, it was their heritage. Yet the Batak resist quietly, continuing to pass down rituals, knowledge, and identity. Their struggle exposes the blind spots of environmental laws and raises urgent questions about who gets to define sustainability and at what cost to indigenous lives. Number 5. The Palawan People. On the Philippine island of Palawan, the indigenous Palawan people have sustained a way of life closely tied to nature for generations. Their farming technique, called kaingin or shifting cultivation, involves clearing small forest areas for planting, then allowing the land to regenerate over time. This method has long supported a balance between the people and their environment, but that harmony is under siege. A major road project in 2000 opened Palawan to widespread tourism, logging, and mining operations. Areas once sacred, burial grounds, and untouched forest, have been bulldozed or stripped bare. The Palawan community now faces rapid cultural erosion. While some have adapted, many continue resisting the collapse of their traditions. Local movements have formed to defend land rights, preserve customs, and protect biodiversity. Their fight is more than survival. It's about retaining identity in a place once untouched by industry. Their story reflects a global struggle, where the push for development runs headfirst into the roots of indigenous life. Number 4. The Mercy Tribe. In the remote Omo Valley of Ethiopia, the Mercy Tribe stands out as one of Africa's most visually distinct and culturally steadfast communities. Their traditions are rooted in strength, honor, and territorial pride. Among their most recognized customs is the use of lip plates, clay or wooden discs inserted into women's lower lips during adolescence. The size of the plate signifies beauty, maturity, and social value. Men and women also undergo scarification, creating elaborate raised patterns that represent bravery, accomplishments, and status within the tribe. The Mercy are herders and subsistence farmers, relying on cattle, sorghum, and seasonal cultivation. Modern weapons, like AK-47s, are often seen in the region, not as symbols of aggression, but as a form of defense in an area plagued by intertribal conflict and resource disputes. Despite growing tourism and outside interference, the Mercy continue to guard their secret and scary customs. Number 3. The Sentinel Tribe. North Sentinel Island in India's Andaman chain is home to the Sentinelese, one of the last truly uncontacted peoples on Earth. They've lived in isolation for thousands of years, rejecting all contact with the outside world. Their hostility toward outsiders is not random, it's protective. In 1867, shipwrecked sailors who washed ashore were attacked. In 2006, 2 fishermen strayed too close and were killed. Even a 2018 missionary who tried to approach was met with fatal resistance. The Indian government enforces a no-contact policy and bans travel within 3 nautical miles of the island. This isolation isn't just about tradition, it's survival. Disease, violence, and exploitation have destroyed countless indigenous groups. The Sentinelese refuse to share that fate. Their aggressive defense is a line in the sand, preserving language, memory, and land untouched by outside influence. They remain a sovereign people by force, not negotiation, a stark example of what survival looks like when the world refuses to listen. Number 2. The Mashopiro Tribe. Tucked deep within the Peruvian Amazon, the Mashopiro are among the last tribes actively resisting contact. With fewer than 600 members, their isolation has helped them survive centuries of trauma brought by outsiders, slavery, disease, and exploitation. Their way of life is built on intimate knowledge of the jungle. They hunt with bows, gather wild fruits, and fish in clear river streams. The forest isn't just home, it's security, history, and identity. Armed with poison-tipped arrows, they defend their land when outsiders encroach. While some have attempted peaceful exchanges, others met violence. A missionary's death in 2011 underscored the dangers of forced contact. The Peruvian government now recognizes the need to protect them, enforcing no-contact zones. Still, loggers and illegal developers continue to push into their territory. Every intrusion risks not just violence, but disease, which could wipe out entire families. Number 1. The Carib People. The Carib, also known as the Kalinago, are an indigenous group native to the Amazon basin and the Caribbean. Their history is marked by resistance, strength, and deep-rooted cultural pride. When European explorers like Christopher Columbus arrived, the Carib fiercely defended their land and identity. Their name became so embedded in the region that Caribbean itself comes from them. Known for their skills in fishing, hunting, and agriculture, they built societies based on autonomy and knowledge of the land. Colonial forces often painted them as violent and cannibalistic. Many of these claims were amplified to justify invasion and conquest. Though some oral histories mention ritual consumption tied to warfare, much of the narrative was manipulated by European powers. Today, the Carib live in regions of South America and the Caribbean, maintaining language, customs, and spiritual traditions. Despite centuries of displacement and cultural suppression, they remain proud, fiercely independent, and unwavering in preserving their lineage in a world that nearly erased them. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you soon.